So we don't go? Captain Miran asked. No, Deho said firmly. We go, because if we don't end this, they'll rebuild. The journey to Cravath Prime took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of preparation, of drilling tactics, of warriors from a dozen species learning to fight as one. Admiral Deho spent those weeks visiting ships throughout the fleet, talking to crews, listening to their stories. A Velithian medic told him about her family killed in the occupation. A Thornax warrior showed him scars from fighting Cravathi oppression. A human pilot barely 20 years old spoke of watching Sol burn from orbit. They all had reasons to fight. They all had reasons to hate. But Deho saw something else in their eyes, hope. Hope that this war might finally end. Hope that they might build something better than the ashes of the old order. We're not just fighting to destroy the Cravathi, Deho told Captain Miran on one of her visits to the flagship. We're fighting to prove that the galaxy can be better than endless conquest. Inspirational speech, Miran replied with a tired smile. But first we have to survive what's waiting for us. When the fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Cravath system, they found exactly what Dr. Jiwoo had warned about. The system was a fortress. Orbital weapons platforms surrounded every planet. The Cravathi had recalled every ship, every soldier, every weapon. Their entire remaining strength was concentrated here, and at the heart of it all, Cravath Prime glowed with barely contained energy. The ancient weapons were active. Supreme Leader Voranth broadcast across all frequencies. Humans and traitors, you have come to die. Behold the power of true civilization. Massive platforms in orbit around Cravath Prime lit up. Beams of pure destruction lanced out, each one capable of vaporizing a capital ship. 3 coalition vessels simply ceased to exist, their shields utterly useless against weapons designed by the precursor race. All ships, evasive patterns, Deho ordered. Don't let those beams lock onto you. Move unpredictably. The coalition fleet scattered, each ship acting independently. It looked like chaos, it was chaos, but that chaos saved them. The ancient weapons were designed to fight organized fleets using standard tactics. Human-inspired chaos confused their targeting systems. Captain Moran led Strike Force Alpha straight into the teeth of the Cravathi defense. Remember, she told her crews, they expect us to be afraid. They expect us to retreat, so we attack. Her ships dove toward the orbital weapons platforms. Cravathi defense forces moved to intercept, expecting a standard combat approach. Instead, Moran's vessels broke apart into individual units, each one taking a different path, firing at different targets, creating maximum confusion. Commander Jamin worked his magic. His electronic warfare teams hijacked the communication networks linking the ancient weapons to their control stations. Just for a few seconds, long enough for the weapons to hesitate, to pause, to miss their targets. Commander Suho led boarding teams against the weapons platforms themselves. Thornax warriors and human marines fought side by side through Cravathi defenders. They didn't try to capture the platforms. They destroyed them from within, sabotaging power systems, setting explosives, ensuring those terrible weapons would never fire again. Commander Hana coordinated information warfare. False intelligence flooded Cravathi tactical networks. Phantom ships appeared on sensors. Real attacks seemed to come from impossible directions. The defenders didn't know what was real anymore, but it wasn't enough. The Cravathi had too many ships, too many weapons, too many soldiers. The coalition was taking heavy losses. Ships exploded. Thousands died. The battle was turning into a grind of attrition that the coalition couldn't win. Dr. Jiwoo, monitoring from a science vessel at the edge of the battle, made a discovery. Admiral, I've analyzed the energy flow. Those ancient weapons draw power directly from Cravath Prime's planetary core. If someone could reach the control center on the surface and disrupt the power feed, the weapons would shut down. Deho finished. How do we get to the surface? Their defenses would have to be penetrated by a single ship moving fast enough to avoid being targeted, Jiwoo said quietly. It would be a one-way trip, sir. Deho looked at the tactical display, at the ships dying, at the crews fighting desperately, at Earth somewhere far behind them, depending on them to win. He had always known this moment might come. Miran, he said into his communicator, you're in command of the fleet, sir? Moran's voice held sudden fear. What are you planning? I'm going to shut down those weapons. You know there's no other way. Admiral, no! Let me do it. Let someone else. My decision is made, Captain. You're the best tactical commander we have. The coalition needs you alive. They need your leadership for what comes after. Deho smiled, though she couldn't see it. Besides, I'm old and tired. Might as well go out doing something useful. He cut the communication before she could argue further. Admiral Daiho took personal command of a small, fast attack ship. Just him and a minimal crew. All volunteers who knew they wouldn't return. They accelerated toward Cravath Prime, weaving through defensive fire using every trick humans had learned about flying recklessly. The Cravathi threw everything at them. Energy beams, missiles, fighter craft. Daiho's ship took hit after hit. The hull burned. Systems failed. But they kept going, kept diving toward the surface. Sir, we're not going to make it, his pilot said calmly. We don't have to make it, Daiho replied. We just have to get close enough. They crashed through Cravath Prime's atmosphere like a meteor. The ship was falling apart around them. But Daiho had aimed true. They struck the control center dead on, punching through layers of defenses through sheer velocity and determination. In his final moments, Admiral Daiho activated every explosive on the ship. The control center vanished in a fireball that could be seen from orbit. The energy flow from the planet's core was severed. The ancient weapons went dark. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Mirren watched her mentor's ship disappear. Tears ran down her face. But there was no time to mourn. All ship, she broadcast, her voice hard as steel. Admiral Daiho gave us victory. Don't waste it, attack. Attack with everything you have. For Admiral Daiho. For freedom. For all the innocent lives taken by this empire. The coalition fleet surged forward with renewed fury. Without the ancient weapons, the battle turned. Human tactics, combined with the technologies of a dozen species, overwhelmed the defenders. Ships that would have retreated instead fought harder, inspired by Daiho's sacrifice. Major Yuna led ground forces to the planet's surface. They fought through the capital city, capturing government buildings and military headquarters. Supreme Leader Voranth tried to escape but was cornered by Yuna herself. It's over, she said, her weapon aimed at his head. Voranth laughed bitterly. You think you've won? You think this changes anything? Even if you kill me, the Dominion is broken, Yuna interrupted. Your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies are free. Your empire is dead. Surrender now or join Admiral Daiho's victims. For the first time in his long life, Voranth felt true fear. These humans, these primitives, had destroyed everything he built. He surrendered. The battle ended. The coalition had won. But victory felt hollow as casualty reports came in. Thousands of ships destroyed, hundreds of thousands dead. And Admiral Daiho, the man who had started it all, who had refused to let humanity be conquered, was gone. Captain Miran stood at a viewport, looking at Cravath Prime. Engineer Tejan joined her. He saved us all, Tejan said quietly. I know, Miran replied. Now we have to make sure his sacrifice meant something. We have to build the peace he died for. Dr. Jiwoo was working on exactly that. Already she was coordinating with coalition scientists to rebuild damaged worlds, to share technology, to ensure no species ever faced conquest alone again. Supreme Leader Voranth faced a tribunal. Species from across the region testified about Cravathi atrocities. The former dictator sat in chains, his arrogance finally broken. Major Yuna advocated for something radical. We could execute him. Maybe we should. But if we do, we're just continuing the cycle of revenge. Admiral Daiho died to break that cycle. I say we imprison him. Make him watch as we build something better than his empire ever was. The tribunal agreed. Voranth would live, but in permanent exile, watching his empire transform into something that celebrated freedom instead of conquest. Across the galaxy, worlds celebrated liberation. The Cravathi Dominion was no more. In its place, the Liberation Coalition announced the formation of the Galactic Commonwealth, a voluntary alliance dedicated to mutual defense and cooperation. Captain Miran was elected its first Supreme Military Commander. She accepted reluctantly, knowing the burden Admiral Daiho had carried. But she also knew he would want her to continue his work. On Earth, they built a memorial, a massive structure listing every name of every person who died in the war. At its center, a statue of Admiral Daiho looking up at the stars. The inscription read, "He taught us that fury, when directed at injustice, can liberate a galaxy." Years passed. Earth healed. Cities were rebuilt using technology shared by the Commonwealth. Humanity took its place not as conquerors but as partners in a galactic community. Dr. Jiwoo founded the Daiho, Institute for Galactic Peace. Its mission was to prevent future conflicts through understanding and diplomacy. Engineers like Tajin helped rebuild worlds devastate. Admiral Kethris of the Cravathi 4th Battle Fleet studied the tactical display with satisfaction. His force consisted of 200 warships, enough firepower to subjugate entire sectors. The pitiful human resistance would be crushed within hours. Then he would personally oversee the execution of their leaders and the enslavement of their population. Perhaps he would take Admiral Deho's head as a trophy. All ships maintain formation, Kethris ordered. We advance to Earth orbit. Destroy any resistance. Leave nothing but surrender or ashes. The fleet moved deeper into the solar system. Everything seemed normal. A few small human ships scattered at their approach, cowards running as expected. The pathetic defense stations orbiting the outer planets fired a few shots, then went silent when return fire destroyed them. It was all proceeding exactly as Kethris had planned. Then the trap closed. What Kethris thought were destroyed defense platforms suddenly activated. They hadn't been destroyed, they had been playing dead. Hundreds of weapons batteries opened fire simultaneously. Not at the Cravathi shields where their fire would be absorbed, but at exposed sensor arrays, communication dishes, and engine nacelles. The fleet's formation began breaking apart as ships lost coordination. That's when the asteroids hit. Engineer Taijin had spent months hollowing out asteroids, filling them with explosives and engines, turning them into massive guided missiles. They emerged from the asteroid belt on trajectories the Cravathi computers said were impossible, because they were impossible for conventional propulsion. But humans had used every trick they knew, including weapons-grade nuclear detonations, to throw rocks at relativistic speeds. 3. Cravathi capital ships simply ceased to exist, vaporized by asteroids moving at a significant fraction of light speed. What is happening? Admiral Kethris shouted. This is madness. No civilized species fights this way. Exactly, Admiral Deho said, though Kethris couldn't hear him. On the bridge of his flagship, Deho watched his battle plan unfold. We're not civilized opponents. We're survivors fighting for our home. Captain Moran's Strike Force Alpha attacked from the direction of the sun, their approach hidden by solar radiation. They didn't attack in formation. They swarmed like angry insects, each ship operating independently, unpredictably. Some fired weapons. Others rammed damaged enemy vessels. A few deliberately exploded near Cravathi ships, sacrificing themselves to cause damage. It was tactical chaos. And that was the point. Deploy psychological warfare systems, Miran ordered. Every human ship began broadcasting. Not just Dr. Jiwoo's carefully designed sonic weapons, but everything humanity could throw at the enemy. Recordings of Earth's death. Screams of human children dying in the bombardment. Promises of vengeance spoken in 1,000 languages. Images of previous Cravathi defeats playing on loop. You came to our home, the broadcast said. You killed our children. You thought we would break. You were wrong. Now you face humanity's fury, and there is nothing in this galaxy more terrifying. Throughout the Cravathi fleet, discipline crumbled. These warriors had never experienced psychological warfare like this. They were trained to fight honorable battles, not to resist mind games from species they considered primitive. Some captains froze, unable to make decisions. Others made mistakes, firing on their own allies in the confusion. Major Yuna watched from Earth's surface, coordinating ground-based weapons. Massive railguns built into the sides of mountains during the occupation fired slugs of metal into orbit. The kinetic projectiles traveled too fast for point defense systems to intercept. They punched through Cravathi shields as if they weren't there. Target the command ship, Yuna ordered. That big one at the center of their formation. Concentrate all fire. Admiral Kethris felt his flagship shudder as projectiles slammed into it. Impossible. Our shields should... Another impact cut him off. Warning lights flashed across his bridge. The humans were using primitive kinetic weapons, the kind no advanced species bothered with, but they worked. All ships retreat to... Kethris never finished the order. A chunk of metal moving at orbital velocity punched through his ship's bridge. The admiral and his entire command staff died instantly. Without their commander, the 4th Battle Fleet fell apart completely. Some captains tried to retreat. Others surrendered. A few fought on until their ships were destroyed. In 6 hours of brutal combat, the most powerful force the Cravathi had sent against Earth was shattered. Engineer Tajin's teams captured dozens of ships intact. Commander Jamin's hackers had infiltrated the enemy fleet's computer systems, locking navigation and weapon controls. Crews abandoned ship rather than face-boarding by the terrifying humans. When silence finally fell across the solar system, Admiral Daiho took stock. The victory had cost them. 20 human ships destroyed, thousands dead. But they had won. Earth was safe, and they had proven something important. Humanity could defeat the Cravathi in direct battle. Send a message to every ship we captured, Daiho ordered. Any Cravathi who wishes to surrender and share information about the Dominion will be treated fairly. Any who refuse will face trial for crimes against humanity. Most surrendered. They had seen what happened to those who fought humans. Some even provided valuable intelligence willingly, shocked that the primitives were treating prisoners according to laws of war. But the victory at Sol had consequences beyond the battle itself. Across Cravathi space, the news spread despite attempts to suppress it. The 4th Battle Fleet destroyed, Admiral Kethris dead, Earth still unconquered. The whispers grew louder. On Verdant 7, an agricultural world enslaved for 2 decades, workers began sabotaging equipment. On Forge Prime, an industrial center, laborers went on strike despite threats of execution. On a dozen worlds, resistance cells that had been dormant for years suddenly became active. Species that had surrendered without fighting began to reconsider. The Velithians, saved by humans, sent representatives to Earth. "We were cowards," their elder said to Admiral Daiho. "We surrendered because we thought resistance was impossible. You proved us wrong. We want to join your coalition. We want to fight." More species joined. The peaceful Velithians contributed medical technology and volunteers. The crystalline Thornax offered their superior shield generators and warriors who could survive in any environment. The aquatic Meridians shared stealth technology and ships that could operate in ways no one expected. The Liberation Coalition formally organized. 30 species sent representatives to Earth. They elected Admiral Daiho as Supreme Commander, not because he demanded it, but because they trusted him. "We're not building an empire," Daiho told the assembly. "We're building an alliance of free peoples. Every species keeps its sovereignty. We fight together because it's right, not because anyone forces us." Dr. Jiwoo worked with scientists from a dozen worlds, combining their knowledge. Human innovation met Velithian medicine, met Thornax engineering, met Meridian stealth technology. The weapons and ships they created were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Captain Miran led deeper raids into Cravathi space. Each successful liberation brought more allies. Her strike force grew from a squadron to a fleet. Commander Jamin's electronic warfare abilities expanded as Meridian technicians taught him their tricks. Commander Suho trained mixed-species boarding teams. Commander Hana coordinated intelligence from hundreds of sources. The Liberation Coalition was becoming a military power that rivaled the Cravathi Dominion itself. But in the throne room of Cravath Prime, the Dominion's capital world, Supreme Leader Voranth faced the truth he had been denying. The rebellion was not a minor problem. It was an existential threat. Half the outer colonies were in revolt. Garrison fleets were defecting or being destroyed. The economy was collapsing as supply lines were cut. How did this happen? Voranth demanded of his advisors. "They are primitives. One backward world started this." An old advisor spoke carefully. "My lord, they are not primitives. They are different. They fight without honor, without rules. They inspire others with their recklessness. They cannot be defeated through conventional warfare because they refuse to fight conventionally. Then we will destroy them unconventionally," Voranth decided. "Recall all fleets to the core worlds. Abandon the outer colonies if necessary. We will draw them here to Cravath Prime. And we will activate the ancient weapons. If we cannot rule the galaxy, we will burn it. The ancient weapons. Artifacts from the civilization the Cravathi had conquered millennia ago. Weapons so powerful they had been locked away, considered too terrible to use. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets, crack planets, sterilize solar systems. Voranth was willing to use them. He would rather see the galaxy burn than admit defeat to primitives. Admiral Daiho received intelligence reports about the Cravathi withdrawal. On the surface, it looked like victory. The enemy was retreating. But Dr. Jiwoo analyzed the energy readings coming from Cravath Prime. "This is wrong," she said, showing him the data. "They're powering up something massive. The energy signatures are unlike anything I've seen. If these readings are accurate, they have weapons that could destroy our entire fleet." Deho gathered his war council. The Cravathi are making their final stand at their homeworld. They're trying to draw us into a trap. We all know it's a trap. The word spread like fire through dry grass. Earth had struck back. Earth had captured a Cravathi commander. Earth had reclaimed its orbit. In the slave camps of 100 worlds in the occupied cities of conquered species, beings who had given up hope began to whisper a question. If humans could resist, could we? On Earth, victory had brought new problems. The planet was scarred, its population devastated. But humanity did what humans do, they rebuilt. Engineer Tajin worked 20-hour days, transforming civilian factories into military production centers. Every factory, every workshop, every garage became part of the war machine. We need more ships, Admiral Deho told him. The Cravathi will come back with reinforcements. We have maybe a year, maybe less, Tajin showed him plans. We're combining human and Cravathi technology. Our ships will be faster, more unpredictable. We can't match their numbers, but we can match their quality now. Shipyards operated around the clock. New vessels emerged weekly, each one a hybrid of human innovation and captured alien technology. They were smaller than Cravathi warships, but faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, they were crewed by humans who had learned to fight dirty. Dr. Jiwoo returned to Earth with her research team. In a laboratory built in the ruins of her old workplace, she unveiled what she called the Vengeance Protocol. I've studied Cravathi psychology, she explained to the military commanders. They value honor, predictability, and clean warfare. We can use weapons that violate those values. Psychological warfare on a massive scale. She showed them examples. Broadcasting systems that played sounds and images specifically designed to terrify the Cravathi. Tactical patterns that made no logical sense but exploited alien mental blind spots. Even paint schemes for ships' colors and patterns that triggered discomfort in Cravathi visual processing. We're not just fighting a military, Jiwoo said. We're fighting a mindset. Every time we do something they consider wrong, we gain an advantage. Lieutenant Yuna, promoted to major for her role in liberating Earth, had a new mission. Refugees from other occupied worlds had made their way to Earth, fleeing Cravathi oppression. Yuna trained them in resistance tactics. Her training camps produced guerrilla fighters from a dozen species, each ready to return to their homeworlds and ignite rebellions. The Cravathi rule through fear, she told her trainees, but fear works both ways. We're going to teach them to be afraid. Admiral Deho assembled his war council. Captain Miran was there, now commanding Strike Force Alpha, the elite attack group. Engineer Tajin represented logistics. Dr. Jiwoo represented research and psychological operations. Major Yuna represented ground forces, and Commander Hyon, the captured Cravathi, sat in chains, forced to advise his former enemies. Tell us about your empire's structure, Deho demanded. Hyon spoke reluctantly. The Dominion controls 300 systems. Most are subjugated species who surrendered without fighting. We have garrison fleets stationed across the territory. The core worlds near our capital are heavily defended, the outer colonies less so. Which worlds are most valuable to the Dominion? Mining colonies like Kepler 442, agricultural worlds like Verdant 7, industrial centers like Forge Prime. Hyon paused. But you cannot win. Even if you liberate every outer colony, the core worlds have enough resources to crush you. Deho smiled coldly. We're not going to fight a conventional war. We're going to do what we do best, be unpredictable. Strike Force Alpha's first mission targeted Kepler 442. The planet was rich in rare minerals, mined by enslaved Velithians, peaceful beings who had surrendered to the Cravathi without resistance decades ago. Captain Miran commanded the assault from the bridge of her flagship, Indomitable. The Cravathi garrison expected nothing. Why would they? Kepler 442 was deep in Dominion space. No enemy had ever struck here. The garrison commander was drinking imported alcohol when alarms began screaming. Human ships appeared from slip space at impossible angles. Cravathi tactical computers couldn't predict their approach vectors because they violated every principle of sensible navigation. Miran's ship spun and rolled, never maintaining a consistent heading. Weapons fired in patterns that seemed random but somehow always hit vulnerable spots. Deploy the Vengeance Protocol, Miran ordered. Broadcasting systems lit up. The Cravathi crew suddenly heard sounds through their communication channels. Human screams mixed with grinding metal, whispers in languages they almost understood, rhythms that made their brains itch. The psychological warfare Dr. Jiwoo had designed hit them like a physical blow. Panic spread through the garrison fleet. Ships began breaking formation, trying to escape the insane humans. Miran's forces pressed the advantage. They boarded ships not with military precision but with wild aggression, fighting in ways no Cravathi warrior could predict or counter. The garrison fell in 3 hours. But Miran didn't stop there. She landed troops, including Major Yuna's trained fighters, on the planet's surface. The occupation forces surrendered quickly when they realized they faced the same species that had liberated Earth. The Velithians emerged from their work camps, confused. They expected new conquerors. Instead, Captain Miran addressed them directly. "We're humans from Earth. The Cravathi attacked our world. We fought back. Now we're offering you a choice. Join us in fighting for freedom, or we'll protect you while you rebuild your world. Either way, you're free." The Velithians had never known such an offer. One of their elders approached Miran. "You fight the Dominion? You win against them? This is impossible." "We made it possible," Miran replied. "And we're going to keep making it possible until every enslaved world is free." News of Kepler 442's liberation reached other occupied systems before the Cravathi High Command could suppress it. More refugees fled to Earth. More species sent secret messages. "We want to help. How do we fight?" The Liberation Coalition began to form. It started informally, a few species working with humans. The Velithians contributed their medical technology, far superior to human or Cravathi medicine. The Thornax, crystalline beings from a high-gravity world, offered their advanced shield generators. The Meridians, aquatic creatures, shared stealth technology they had hidden from their conquerors. Admiral Deho stood before representatives of a dozen species in a conference room on Earth. "The Cravathi rule by making you feel alone," he said. "They make each conquered species think they're the only ones suffering. That resistance is impossible. We're here to prove them wrong. Together, we're stronger than any empire." The coalition grew. Each liberated world brought new resources, new warriors, new hope. Strike Force Alpha conducted raid after raid. Captain Miran became a legend. The human commander who appeared from nowhere, struck like lightning, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. Commander Jamin specialized in electronic warfare. His hacking teams could take over entire Cravathi stations, turning their own security systems against them. Commander Suho excelled in close-quarters combat, leading boarding parties that cleared enemy ships with brutal efficiency. Commander Hana mastered strategic deception, creating elaborate false intelligence that sent Cravathi fleets chasing phantoms. But the greatest victory wasn't military. It was psychological. Throughout Cravathi space, troops began requesting transfers away from occupied worlds. Officers resigned their commissions. Some garrison commanders surrendered without fighting, terrified of the Death Worlders from Earth. Dr. Jiwoo analyzed the data. "We're not just beating them militarily," she reported. "We're breaking their will to fight. They've ruled for so long without real opposition that they don't know how to handle us." Then came the day everything changed. A massive Cravathi fleet emerged from slipspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. The 4th Battle Fleet, one of the Dominion's most powerful forces, had been dispatched to crush the rebellion once and for all. Its commander, Admiral Kethris, broadcast a simple message. "Humanity, your resistance ends today. Surrender, or your world will be sterilized." Admiral Deho stood on the bridge of his flagship looking at the sensor readings. They were outnumbered 5-1. The enemy had enough firepower to crack planets. A conventional battle would be suicide. He smiled. "This is exactly what we've been waiting for," he said. "Send the signal. Activate the Terra Protocol." Captain Moran looked at him. "Sir, are you sure?" "If this doesn't work—" "It will work," Deho interrupted. "Because they're expecting a normal battle. We're going to give them chaos. We're going to show them what happens when you invade humanity's home." Throughout the solar system, hidden installations powered up. Automated defense platforms emerged from concealment in asteroid fields. Satellites that looked dead suddenly came alive. Even the space debris orbiting Earth, pieces of destroyed ships and stations, began moving, guided by hidden thrusters toward enemy positions. The Cravathi 4th Battle Fleet entered the solar system confidently. They had no idea they were entering a trap built by a species that had spent the last year learning everything about them. The Battle of Sol was about to begin. 6 months passed. Earth under Cravathi occupation looked like a different planet. The aliens had established control centers in the ruins of major cities. They mined Earth's resources, taking metals, minerals, and anything else they wanted. Humans who resisted were killed. Those who submitted were forced to work. The Cravathi believed the conquest was complete. They were wrong. In the tunnels beneath Seoul, Lieutenant Yuna had become someone new. No longer just a military officer, she was now a leader of the resistance. The dozen survivors she had saved had grown into hundreds, then thousands. They lived in the darkness, emerging only to strike at the occupation forces. Remember, she told her team before each mission, we can't match their technology, but we can match their cruelty with our courage. We can be unpredictable. That's our weapon. Tonight's target was a Cravathi supply convoy. Yuna's team had spent weeks watching, learning the routes and schedules. They planted explosives at a weak point in the road. When the convoy passed, the ground collapsed beneath the vehicles. Aliens stumbled out confused. They expected another vehicle attack. Instead, Yuna's people attacked from the sewers, from windows, from holes in walls. They fired at the armor joints, just as she had discovered that first day. They threw homemade explosives. They vanished before reinforcements arrived. The convoy was destroyed. More importantly, doubt was planted in Cravathi minds. Earth was supposed to be pacified. Why were humans still fighting? Engineer Tajan had transformed the underground bunker network into something remarkable. Using salvaged materials and his own genius, he had built a hidden factory. Weapons came off assembly lines, crude compared to alien technology, but effective. Explosives, armor-piercing rounds, communication devices. He connected resistance cells across the planet, creating a network the Cravathi could not see. We're not just surviving anymore, he told his workers. We're building. When the time comes to fight back, we'll be ready. Far from Earth, Dr. Jiwoo worked in a hidden research station on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Admiral Daeho had sent her there with his best scientists. For months, they had studied the Cravathi technology she had recorded during the invasion. I found something, Jiwoo announced one day, her voice excited. Her team gathered around her screen. Look at their weapon systems. They're incredibly advanced, designed to fight enemies with similar technology. Energy shields, plasma weapons, graviton beams, all made to counter each other. So how does that help us? Asked one scientist. Jiwoo smiled. Because our technology is different. Primitive, they'd call it. But their systems aren't optimized for it. Look here. Their shields are designed to deflect energy weapons and explosive charges. But kinetic weapons, simple bullets moving fast enough, can sometimes get through. And their targeting computers predict logical, textbook military tactics. They don't know how to respond to chaos. She pulled up another file. I also found something in their communications. The Cravathi fear something they call primitive unpredictability. In their empire, warfare is civilized, following rules and honor codes. They genuinely don't understand enemies who fight dirty, who use guerrilla tactics, who refuse to follow the rules. We're a psychological weapon, another scientist said slowly. Just by being human, by being unpredictable, we scare them. Exactly, Jiwoo confirmed. We need to exploit that. Meanwhile, Admiral Daeho had not been idle. His scattered fleet had conducted dozens of small raids across the solar system. They hit supply depots on Mars. They destroyed mining operations in the asteroid belt. They were learning Cravathi tactics, capturing equipment, adapting. Captain Moran had become his most valuable commander. Her ship, the Indomitable, was a hybrid now. Human design reinforced with scavenged Cravathi technology. She led raids with a style that drove the enemy crazy. Her attacks came from impossible angles. She'd retreat when they expected her to advance, advance when they expected retreat. She broke every rule in the Cravathi tactical handbook. We captured another one of their supply ships, Moran reported to Daeho one day. And this time we caught it intact. Toijin's people think they can get it working. Daeho nodded. Good. We're going to need every ship we can get. I've been in contact with all the resistance cells on Earth. It's time for Operation Payback. Operation Payback was simple in concept, terrifyingly complex in execution. In one coordinated strike, the resistance would attack the planetary shields from inside while the fleet attacked from orbit. The goal was to reclaim Earth's space, capture Cravathi ships intact, and send a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity was not defeated. The operation would happen during a Cravathi ceremony. Commander Hyon had announced a celebration of 1 year of productive occupation. Thousands of occupation troops would gather at the main control center in what used to be Seoul. Their defenses would be relaxed. They thought Earth was broken. On the night of the ceremony, Yuna led her fighters through the tunnels. They carried every weapon Taejin had built, every explosive they had saved. Thousands of resistance members moved through the darkness beneath the city. Above them, aliens celebrated their victory. "Wait for the signal," Yuna whispered into her communicator. In orbit, Daeho watched the countdown. His entire fleet, every ship that survived, every vessel they had captured or repaired, gathered at the edge of the solar system. Moran commanded the vanguard. Engineer Taejin aboard a command ship was ready to hack into the alien network the moment the shields fell. Dr. Jiwoo had given them the tools they needed. Weapons designed to exploit Cravathi weaknesses. Tactics specifically crafted to cause maximum psychological impact. She wished she could be there, but her work was to remain here, continuing research. The battle belonged to others. "All units, this is Admiral Daeho," he said calmly. "Today we take back our home. For Earth, for humanity, for everyone who died, attack." On the surface, Yuna's fighters emerged from the tunnels directly inside the control center. The aliens, celebrating and relaxed, were caught completely by surprise. Explosives destroyed shield generators. Bullets found weak points in armor. The Resistance had spent a year learning how to hurt these invaders, and now they unleashed everything. In orbit, the Cravathi fleet scrambled to respond as human ships appeared from all directions. Miran's Indomitable led the charge. They used tactics no sane commander would attempt: kamikaze runs that pulled up at the last second, feints that became real attacks, weapons fire that seemed random but targeted specific weak points. The Cravathi were prepared for a logical battle. They got chaos instead. Engineer Taejin's hacking programs infected the alien network. Ship systems went haywire. Communications failed. Friendly fire incidents erupted. The Cravathi fleet lost coordination just as the human fleet pressed harder. The battle raged for 6 hours. It was brutal. Humans died by the thousands, but this time the Cravathi died too. Their shields failed. Their ships were boarded. Their troops on the ground were overwhelmed by enemies who fought with the desperation of the oppressed. When the sun rose over Seoul, the Cravathi control center was in human hands. Commander Hyon, attempting to escape, was captured by Yuna herself. In orbit, Admiral Daeho stood on the bridge of a captured Cravathi cruiser looking down at Earth. "We did it," Captain Moran said, standing beside him. Her uniform was torn, her face exhausted, but she smiled. "We won one battle," Daeho corrected, "but we captured their commander. We have their ships. We have their technology. Now we have a chance." They brought Commander Hyon before Admiral Daeho. The alien commander had lost his arrogance. He looked at the humans with something new in his 4 eyes. Fear. "You will tell us everything about your empire," Daeho said quietly. "Every military installation, every weakness, every secret. Because Earth is not alone anymore. We're coming for you, all of you." Word of humanity's victory spread through the Cravathi communication network before it could be suppressed. Across the galaxy, subjugated species heard an impossible story. A primitive world had fought back and won. The name Earth was spoken in whispers in slave camps and occupied worlds. Some heard it as a story. Others heard it as hope. The stars above Earth had never seemed so peaceful. Admiral Daeho stood on the bridge of Horizon Prime, the massive orbital station that protected humanity's homeworld. Through the observation window, he could see the blue and green planet below, dotted with the lights of cities that glowed like jewels in the darkness. It had taken centuries for humanity to reach this point. Wars had ended. Nations had united. Peace, true peace, finally seemed possible. Captain Moran walked up beside him, holding a datapad. She was younger than the Admiral, but her eyes showed the same hope. "Sir, all defense systems are running normally. Dr. Jiwoo's research team on the surface just sent their monthly report. They think they're close to a breakthrough in faster-than-light travel." Daeho smiled. "Good. Maybe we'll finally join the rest of the galaxy out there." He gestured toward the stars. Humanity knew other civilizations existed. They had picked up radio signals, seen distant ships, but they had never been contacted. They were alone, but not lonely. They were building something beautiful on their own. Then everything changed. The alarm screamed. Red lights flashed across every console. Moran's datapad clattered to the floor as she rushed to her station. "Sir, multiple contacts emerging from slipspace. They're huge!" Deho's heart turned to ice. Above Earth, tiers in space opened like wounds. Through them came ships, not exploration vessels or trade ships. These were warships, larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls were dark metal, covered in weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. Dozens of them. Hundreds. More kept coming. On the surface, Dr. Jiwoo looked up from her laboratory in Seoul. Through the window, she saw something impossible. The sky was filled with alien vessels blocking out the sun. Her hands shook as she reached for the emergency communicator. "This is Dr. Jiwoo at the research center. We have visitors." A transmission came through every channel, every frequency, every device on Earth and in orbit. The face that appeared was not human. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, skin like polished stone, and a mouth that moved in ways that seemed wrong. The creature spoke, and computers translated its words into every human language. "I am Commander Hyon of the Kravathi Dominion. Your planet has resources we require. Your species will serve us. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You have 1 of your hours to comply." Admiral Deho felt rage and fear fight inside him. He opened communications to Earth's government. "This is Admiral Deho. Request permission to prepare defensive response." The answer came quickly. "Granted. But also attempt diplomatic contact. We need more time." Earth's leaders tried to talk. They sent messages of peace, offers of trade, pleas for understanding. The Kravathi response was simple and terrible. Beams of pure energy lanced down from the sky. Cities vanished in blasts of heat and light. Seoul, New York, Moscow, Mumbai, one by one, the great cities of Earth began to burn. "All ships engage." Deho's voice cut through the chaos. The United Earth Defense Fleet, humanity's pride, moved to intercept. Captain Moran commanded her squadron with skill born from years of training. They had prepared for this day, even though they had hoped it would never come. But they were not ready for this. Humanity's weapons bounced off Kravathi shields. Missiles exploded harmlessly against energy barriers. Meanwhile, alien weapons tore through human ships like paper. Moran watched in horror as vessel after vessel disappeared in flowers of flame. Her squadron of 12 became 6, then 3, then only her own damaged ship remained. "Pull back," Deho ordered. "All remaining ships scatter and hide. Do not engage." "That's an order." It hurt him to say it. Every instinct screamed to fight, to die defending Earth, but dying uselessly would not save anyone. On the surface, Lieutenant Yuna led a group of survivors through the ruins of Seoul. The streets she had walked her whole life were now craters and rubble. Bodies lay everywhere. The air smelled of smoke and burning metal. Behind her, a dozen civilians followed, including children too shocked to cry. "Keep moving," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "The subway tunnels are still intact. We can hide there." An alien patrol appeared at the end of the street. The Kravathi soldiers wore armor that made them look like moving statues. They raised their weapons. Yuna pushed the civilians behind a collapsed building and fired her rifle. The bullets did nothing. The alien armor absorbed them like rain. But Yuna noticed something. When one alien turned its head, there was a gap at the neck joint. She aimed carefully and fired. The alien stumbled. Not dead, but hurt. "The armor has weak points," she shouted. "Aim for the joints." It was not much, but it was something. The patrol withdrew, and Yuna led her group into the darkness of the underground tunnels. Above them, the bombardment continued. Engineer Taejin sat in a bunker deep beneath the city, surrounded by screens and machinery. He had been maintaining these emergency shelters for years, praying they would never be needed. Now thousands of people huddled in the corridors, listening to the thunder of destruction above. Taejin worked frantically at his console, keeping the power running, the air flowing, the water clean. If the systems failed, everyone would die. "We're not defeated yet," he muttered to himself. "We're survivors. We'll find a way." Dr. Jiwoo made it to an evacuation ship with her research data. As the small vessel lifted off, she watched Seoul disappear beneath clouds of smoke. Tears ran down her face, but her mind was already working. The data she carried might be humanity's only hope. The alien technology she had glimpsed through her sensors, the energy signatures, the shield frequencies, it was all recorded. If she could analyze it, maybe they could find a weakness. Admiral Deho's flagship, crippled and burning, drifted in the shadow of the moon. Half his crew was dead. The rest were wounded or in shock. He gathered his senior officers around him. "The Cravati think they've won," he said quietly. "They think one attack was enough to break us. They're wrong. We're going to hide. We're going to learn. We're going to adapt. And then we're going to make them regret they ever came to Earth." Captain Moran, her face covered in ash and blood, nodded. "What are your orders, sir?" "Scatter the remaining ships. Hide in the asteroid belt, the outer planets, anywhere they won't look. Watch them. Learn their patterns. And wait for my signal." Deho looked at each face. "Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We'll survive this too." Below them, Earth burned. The Cravathi fleet settled into orbit, confident in their victory. Commander Hyon sent a message back to the Dominion. "Earth is conquered. Minimal resistance. Proceeding to next target." But in the ruins of cities and hidden bunkers and scattered ships drifting through the darkness, humanity was not conquered. They were wounded, yes. They were bleeding. But they were not broken. In the tunnels beneath Seoul, Lieutenant Yuna began training civilians to fight. In his bunker, Engineer Tae-jin started building weapons from salvaged parts. In her escape ship, Dr. Ji-woo analyzed alien technology. And in the cold darkness of space, Admiral Deho made a promise to himself and to Earth. The Cravathi had started this war, but humanity would finish it. The occupation had begun, but so had the resistance.